and now we're back face to face, seeing each other again, and it's just wonderful to see you all again, and hopefully we'll continue to have our meetings like this and have more residents. So please make sure you invite your friends and neighbours along, because we do talk about lots of very important issues and local community projects that are so vital to this area. And in the 4 years since I did this, it was actually, I was just saying to Tony that when I was a newbie in 2018, I did the first Raynes Park Community Forum meeting in that first part of the term, and again we're back here, so I just feel a bit like deja vu for me. Yes. But there are lots of changes. We've had a few elections, we've had a few issues that have come and gone, like Crosswell came and went, and all sorts of things have changed. And we've got a few new councillors as well, who I think we will be introducing at some point later on too. But it will be a really important meeting, and do give us your feedback. At the end we've got AOB, so if there's anything that doesn't come up in the meeting that you want to raise, and please do. I'm going to be just starting off with apologies from Tony. Are there any formal apologies?
Just Chris Edge, our chairman, who's disappeared to America for a month, having not seen his family for 2 years thanks to COVID. So I'm vice chairman and sitting in for him, but I'll try and do it as well as I can.
I think Tony's going to give us a little bit of a breakdown on what the Raynes Park Community Forum is all about, just for those who don't know, and then we'll kick off with the open forum. So Tony, just a little bit of background.
Well, the forum's been going for a while now, and it's obviously a very useful way of communicating between the community and councillors, and raising points that can be taken back. If we can't provide answers immediately, well, hopefully somebody will take responsibility for taking that back and giving answers. I'm not sure how unique it is in Merton. You can perhaps tell me with that. Anyway, at some stages I think one was going to make savings and not carry it forward, but I think at some stage we got audiences of 90 to 100, so I think its popularity was certified, from the beginning really. We have fortunately people like Stephen Hammond coming on as MP, and it's well attended as well, and it's one way, I suppose, of making sure the democratic process works, that we can actually all express our views and they can be heard directly as well. It has been going on for the last 2 years. It's just been Zoom, as you said, so we lose a bit of continuity. It's much easier to see people's faces, and you don't have to choreograph everybody coming at the right time and not talking over one another and this sort of thing. So hopefully in a post-COVID wave going forward now, we can look forward to this being the norm. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. So just for your information, I'm Councillor Hina Bokhari, and I'm the Councillor for West Barnes. And this part of the session is called Open Forum. This is an opportunity to raise any issues that haven't been already covered in the agenda. And we've had a few emails that do come in within the last day or so in advance, and that goes straight to Tony. So in the future, if you do wish to do that, do make sure that Tony knows what you'd like to talk about. We have had a email from the Raynes Park councillors. So can I ask you if you can introduce yourselves and then go through some of, I think there were 3 main areas that you'd like to talk to us about.
Were you talking sat down or was it the front?
You can come up.
Come on, look that way.
Right. Well, you guys are not getting away with this. You're joining me in a second. So I'm Chessie. I'm one of the Raynes Park councillors. Matt.
Yeah, Matt Willis, another councillor.
And Victoria Wilson.
So the key thing I was going to talk to you guys about today is the developments that are happening with Raynes Park Station. So, so one of the big things that we've discussed, I know lots of people are very keen on, is improving step-free access to Raynes Park Station. Obviously, you have it on the going into London side, but not coming back. So actually, just this morning, we met with both Network Rail and South Western Rail about possible plans for making that step-free. So we are looking to put in, so going to hopefully put in a bid by the end of July. It is not something that is guaranteed, but hopefully the idea is that a lift will go in. So if you guys, I'm assuming you use Raynes Park Station a lot, shout if I'm assuming some knowledge. We'll go in there, we lift up to platform 2, so the first platform on the going into London side, and then a lift again up and over the top to allow access for people coming out of London. So they would have to go up that, back and then down. Obviously that is not an ideal solution. We would love a solution which would allow people, whichever way they were coming, have access on that side of the station. But unfortunately, with the layout of the platforms, that is proving to be incredibly difficult. This is sort of the most likely way to be approved solution that has been come up with. So we're looking to get the bid in by the end of July. We are not looking, just as a bit of expectation management, looking to know whether or not that has been approved until about spring next year. And if it is approved, we would hope that we would have the information, we would have it actually built probably not until 2029, which is, I know, still a lot of, it's not great, but that is sort of the speed that the council and the system work at. In ways of making sure that we can get it approved, support from community groups, like people represented here this evening, really can make a difference, and already spoken, but support from the MP as well, really is things that we can sort of to try and make sure that that funding is approved, and then once that's approved, we can look at actually making it happen. Does anybody have any questions?
Would you mind just explaining again how the actual mechanics work?
Yeah.
Because I didn't quite get
Of course. So as you come in on the side, so platform 1 and 2, at the side, the other side, you come in, there's a ramp that is currently slightly too steep for code. So the idea is that that ramp would be flattened and slightly extended. It would then be a half lift up to platform 2. So if you wanted to access platform 1, you'd have to go up the station, up the platform and back. But that is also where the train is closest to the platform, so you could actually get from the platform to the train. That would be a singular lift shaft up and then up again, and then a bridge across the platforms and then down to platform 3 and 4. So if you were coming out of London, you'd have to go up across and out the same ticket gates as you come in.
Have 2 stops.
The first lift would have 2 stops. The one on platform 3 and 4 would just have the one.
Very well explained. And there are 2 other subjects.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted a quick touch on homelessness in Raynes Park, which a lot of people contacted us about as soon as we started up as councillors. Obviously, this is the first meeting in person, as you said, since 2019. So it's easy to see how things can be missed when people are working from home or behind a computer. So when we went to our first training, we were promptly told that there were no rough sleepers in Merton, which all of us were quite surprised by, considering our experience in Raynes Park Tunnel over the last couple of years. But yes, it is absolutely nuanced. And so from speaking to the police, from speaking to councillors, from speaking to officers, we have now managed to, all working together, get accommodation for the 2 gentlemen who've been seen in there over the last 2-3 years, one of which is with family, one of which is somewhere else in the borough. So the great news is that at the moment, no one is sleeping in Raynes Park Tunnel. Thanks to everyone that looked out for the homeless. I think we made it quite attractive. So there was a sofa and a bookcase there at one point due to donations and support from the community. So thank you also to council officers who cleared that now. A reminder that you can report anyone sleeping rough via StreetLink app, who will send a train night team. There are different numbers for day support and for an emergency out of hours line, so I'll ping that across to Chris maybe to put in the minutes, so everyone's got access to those numbers. My other thing quickly was Manu Plastics, which is a huge site near here, has had a lot of indecision over many years, partly due to Crossrail and not knowing whether that was going to go ahead. So that's like 579 Kingston Road, 5879 to 89. So we got in touch with the asset manager due to, I think, the last community forum, there were people sleeping on the site and creating quite a lot of fly tipping. So they've said that clearance of the fly tipping will commence this week. It will take a minimum of 3 weeks to complete, but that is happening. But there is also changes to the plans for that site. So they had secured 2 approvals on appeal last year for 118 and 124 residential units respectively, along with a series of small office units that fronted Kingston Road. That did include some affordable housing, but now, just so everyone is aware, they are pursuing a 100% commercial planning application. It will not include any housing. So I've been in touch with them this week, and they've decided to pursue a scheme which comprises self-storage, because the site is owned by a self-storage company, 2 trade counter units and small light industrial and office units. That will necessitate another planning application, so watch this space.
Yeah. Could I just say that they've sat on that site for about 15, 20 years. It's presumably they're just valuing it on their company accounts, and it's going up in value. So they've got no incentive to do anything with that land. And I know it's beyond the council or even the MPs to pressure it. But I did see Theresa May in Parliament about 3 months ago saying there isn't really a shortage of land in this country. It's people like access just sitting on suitable sites that could be used for housing. And really they're not being a responsible landowner.
Well, it's absolutely not beyond councillors to pressure and ask, and so I contacted their representative, and I said, would they be ready to move on these schemes if successful? The site has been vacant for many decades since the residential proposals even got approved. So the community will be very happy to see the clearing the flag on the site from this week, but we look forward to seeing the plans because I said, how can we take this as a realistic proposal that's going to move forward? And he did say in terms of the development of the site, I understand entirely where you're coming from. The site's been vacant for far too long, and he can confirm that the client has every intention of building this new scheme. So that's something at least. Thank you.
Just a quick update from me. Just first want to say thank you so much for the warm welcome. Since we've been councillors, and it's great to see Stephen here as well. I also want to say thanks to the former councillors. I know they've all worked so hard, and carry on that mantle and hopefully represent you well over the forthcoming years. So just briefly from me, 2 points. Clarion, which obviously you probably all know about. They manage the estates over in Carter's Estate and also Chubb Court, which is on Anti Grove. So they obviously carry out regular inspections. There's only one coming up on the 19th of July, so just letting you know we'll be attending that. And if there's any issues you'd like to raise, then in advance, please let us know. And we've also organised for one at Chubb Court, which is a smaller site and they don't routinely visit, but because we're going to be doing them anyway, we encourage them to come along, and we will be attending that too. And the second point is around Trinity Place, which is Waitrose, so that area all around the supermarket. You can often see everyone's noticed it's sort of gone a bit to not wreck and ruin, but there's some graffiti, the tiles have fallen off, and I know that we have real pride in Raynes Park, and the Raynes Park Association have worked really hard to make huge improvements to the area and really kind of campaign on that particular spot as well. And so we're really pleased this week to hear from Firstport, who are managing agents for Berkeley Homes, who manage St James, who are the developers of that site. They're going to be coming. They've done a site visit and they're going to be instructing some contractors to actually fix the problem. But we'll also speak to them about some longer term improvements so that we don't see the tiles falling off so easily going forward. So yes, there's some good news on that front. So and well done to the Raynes Park Association for their work there.
Thank you. Yeah, I just to add that we were hoping to actually improve it before as well, and we've had proposals, but we can't apparently spend still money, the money we get from planning gain, as it were, apparently because it's private land. But if there's some blockage that we could actually, while they're rehabbing it, make it even better, then hopefully maybe we could twist the council's arm with some still money to actually clear up something like 12 different manholes all over the place, and the bulk area where there's all the curbs you trip over to get up to things as well. There's subtle things that could be better, but we're not putting a lot of store in that yet, but hopefully we'll follow your lead and take what guide we get from that, really.
Okay, well, thank you. Tony hasn't been informed of any other issues to be raised during the open forum, but we do have our local police representatives, PC Jonathan Donnellan and PC James Cushing, who just want to say very quickly a quick hello, and then we'll be moving on to our next item, which is Stephen Hammond.
Thank you very much. I'm PC Jonathan Donnellan, and this is James Cushing. So we've been your ward officers in the Raynes Park ward for myself about 2 to 3 years, and James probably quite a lot longer than that. 14 years. So just a quick hello from us. Our contact cards are all on the desk here. It's got all our email addresses on there. That's the best way to contact us if you have any queries about the local area. I know the ward boundaries have recently changed. We've lost part of the north from Cambridge Road pretty much up, but we've gained the apostles. So the ward boundaries have changed, but we will leave a few maps here for anyone who isn't aware. Also, we have a PC with us on attachment called PC Kane Ellis, who's with us for 6 months, who's learning the trade. He's a probationer, so you'll see him with us on our patrols as well. Yeah, any issues, email is the best way to get through to us, and when we return to duty, we'll respond.
Are there any emergency questions before Okay, I think we're happy for you to go.
Thank you so much. Lovely.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for coming.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
So we have the honour of having our MP Stephen Hammond next, and he has a few words, and we're sure he'll take some questions from you.
Well, thank you very much, and as Tony said, it's great to be back in person. Since we last met, a number of things have happened, but of course there were council elections earlier this year, and with all council elections there are losers and winners, and I want to thank the Raynes Park councillors who did so much over the last 4 years, but also to congratulate all the new councillors. I've always tried to work with everybody from all political denominations, and I hope we'll be able to work together successfully. Because Raynes Park has, I think over the last 15 years, seen some major triumphs. And Tony and I think Chris, about 15 years ago, we started the Station Group, which had made progress and say some fits and starts. But there was some good news about some of the improvements to the south of the Skew Arch, some occasional painting by Network Rail, and some good news at the front of the station as well. I'm delighted, I was going to talk a bit about step-free access in a moment, but just to say on Raynes Park Station, it's very good this application is going in, delighted to support it. I think it's the third time we've applied for the application here at Raynes Park. It is, however, the most used station on the southern network that hasn't got step-free access, and it's simply inexcusable. And I'm hopeful that this time round it will get what it deserves, and it should get what it deserves. I guess that the other issue, which we've made little progress on, but tried, and will continue to try, is the kiss and drop area at the south. I know that already. Chris and Matt I've spoken to the Chief Executive of Workspace, and I want to make sure that we get that resolved in the next 6 months, year, because I think it's really important that system works. If that doesn't, it's being used for long-term parking. It's not supposed to do, but it's there so that people can make, without disrupting the traffic, drop. I'd like to see some better cycle facilities there as well. So all of those sorts of interconnectivity could be done if we get that resolved. And I think the only way we're probably going to make that is to force the Chief Executive of Workspace to actually come down on a proper visit. And that's, I think, important. We've mentioned Raynes Park step-free access. The good news over the last couple of years is that the scheme at Motspur Park has successfully been in the pipeline and will come through. I suspect that we're going to see some development starting there within the next year or so, and that's really positive news for Motspur Park. I don't know how many of you know, but there is a new scheme to renovate, upgrade and refurbish the Wimbledon Chase station site, with some new planning applications being approved, and I'm delighted to say that a joint developer and Network Rail funded will ensure that there is step-free access at that station. And I've been talking to the developer for I think about 2 years, so I'm delighted that the scheme has come through, and I think all local councillors are visiting the site in the next week or so, because that station is at the almost at the centre of 4 wards, and so I think there's going to be doing quite a lot of councillor interaction. I want to say a few words about a couple of planning applications. Many of you will know that I've been watching the tennis, but if we were sitting at the other side of the borough at the moment, one of the most controversial applications we've had for many years is the All England tennis application. And I think the key to this, understanding this, is that this is on a piece of land that, although the All England bought from the council back in 1994, two significant things. One is it is designated as metropolitan open land, and that does mean that there is normally a presumption against building on it, and secondly there is a legal covenant about what can actually be built on it. I've been working with residents groups and a number of others to make the case that this application has 4 major areas of contention. First of all, that it's going to close Church Road for somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks a year. that there are too many courts being put on the site, that the new show court is simply too big in scale and mass for what is metropolitan open land, and that the new public park has got significant maintenance buildings in it, which will mean that there are a lot of vehicle movements inside what will be a public park, and I don't think that any of that is appropriate. It is going to be heard by planning committees in September. It's not too late for anyone here to have a view. Everybody in Merton is, and everybody in Wimbledon, Raynes Park is entitled to have a view on this. And I would urge you to consider writing to the local council to express objections. It shouldn't be being built at that scale and size in metropolitan area. I was very pleased, though, however, that the lesser application got refused a couple of weeks ago. Again, the key point about this is that this was designated as a land for sports usage. And there are, I think, quite obviously one or two viable sports usages for that site. Notwithstanding the developer tells you there aren't, quite often the developer is using, I think, tests that will make almost anything not viable for that site. The good news is the application was refused, but with all applications like this, the watchword is vigilance, because I suspect there's little doubt that it will come back again. I think that's really important. I was delighted to hear Victoria and Matt talk about homelessness in Clarion. The particular gentleman you refer to undoubtedly will be back. He is every 6 months. There's a particular gentleman, if it's the same one, has come back. I see a number of people around the room nodding and agreeing. We've tried to help him a number of times. Let's hope this time these two gentlemen find permanent residences. But we're right to do everything we can to make sure that homelessness is sorted out. And it is also true to say, I think that Clarion are going to be, I'm trying to find the right word. Clarion have proved over a long period of time not to be the best social landlord. I think that current councillors, previous councillors, and new councillors will attest that you will find this takes up a large part of your post bag. I'm afraid we need to keep them holding them to the fire. We need to keep talking to Merton as well to make sure that they are putting an accountability in. It is simply not good enough that social housing landlord fails to deliver the improvements on time, fails to deliver them to suitable quality. They committed to doing that, and they should be doing that. There was one event in the last, I think, 2 or 3 months that has united everybody, and that was the Queen's Jubilee. And I know that lots of people had street parties, and I was delighted to visit many on the Sunday that as well. I think on the Sunday I managed 7, but I didn't have a drink at every one, by the way, just in case. Although for fairly obvious reasons. But I think what
work event.
Yeah.
It's a work event.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But we don't always, we don't have to drink at work every time. I think that actually what that showed was that there is still post-COVID, there was a real bringing back together of communities and a real community spirit. And I think that we look forward over the next year, some of that spirit, I think is going to be, hopefully still very much prevalent as we all come back to absolutely normal lives. The only final thing I just wanted to mention is that there is an increasingly large Hong Kong community basing itself in Raynes Park, and they are, I think, are going to be a community that are going to want to be very community based. I did a session with them last week, and one of my friends I was talking about how the British government system works, and he was talking about how the British tax system works, as they wanted to know. But one of the things they asked at the end was, how can they get more involved in the local community? So residents associations, do not be surprised if you get approaches from Merton Hong Kongers who want to be involved, because I've explained what residents associations are. They're a fairly unique concept apparently, not resident in Hong Kong, but they're a community that are going to, I think, an increasing number of people will be basing themselves here. I have no doubt that they want to add value to our community, and I hope that we'll welcome them as well. I'm happy to take questions about
Yes,
pretty
please.
much anything.
Do raise your hand if you have a question. You might not. Oh, yeah.
Do you get on well with ground chaps?
I get on well with everybody, obviously. Depends what the question is.
We have a chat to Grant about Raynes Park. That'd be really helpful.
Well, I think that when the process works, I mean, there is obviously, there will be a chance, I think, to make points as we go through the process. I think we need to be clear. I think the most important point that we need to keep making is that this is the most used station on this network that hasn't got step through. And if you're doing another round, much as I'm keen that everybody has it, I will be supporting the application for Hayden's Road as well, which is the other side of the borough. But Raynes Park should have it. It's just an obvious thing to do, so I shall certainly be making the point. You may well, of course, find me asking that question in transport questions section or something or some such time. It's a good way to make a question, it's a good way to make a point.
Can I ask a transport question? Would you say Crossrail 2 is now dead for the foreseeable future? Rather than forever?
I think it's the phrase I've used I think at the Wimbledon forum was it's in the deep freeze.
Right.
I mean, I think that what we will see, and we will have to still have a look at, is I'm expecting Crossrail to produce a final list of safeguarding options and plans, and it will be worth looking at those because that will clearly have an impact on the land. But my best guess is that this is not a project that we're going to see for a long time. I don't think it's dead forever, but I do think it's sort of unlikely to be current for 5 to 10 years.
Okay, because I think there are, we've got on the agenda tonight various improvements that could be made around the station if we didn't have the dead hand of Crossrail 2 almost waiting to block things, as it were. So,
Well, I think,
the time scale is it's worth doing some improvements, even if it's still in the deep freeze for a while.
well, I think the presumption, Tony, should be that it's not going to happen, and therefore we should get on and do the improvements.
Right.
And I think we should work together as a group, residents associations, councillors, myself, and the Raynes Park Association to get on and get it done.
Right. Thank you.
Can I just go back to the nanoplastics thing? We've also got that pub across there, which keeps doing stop-start, and has now got sort of knocked that little stable down to the left of it, it's now undeveloped. And we've also got 4 brand new houses, which I think are owned by the glass factory in Dorian Road, that got so far 60–70% of stock. So we've got 3 sites in just this little area where the owners are not, for some reasons I can't understand, are not getting on with, finishing the development, and it makes the place look a bit run down, to be honest.
I will pursue your councillors are pursuing the manufacturers, but I'm happy to help them with that. I will have a go at the pub site and make sure we can sort out why that's happening. Try and find out who the ownership is.
It was owned by the chap who owns the Olive Garden at one time.
Yeah, it was. I thought there'd been an interesting family dispute, but I may be wrong.
Oh, right.
But I'll try and find out. I think that may be one of the reasons for the delay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No? Thank you. Well, that was a great report. Thank you so much for that. And we really appreciate all the work that you've been putting into, particularly in support for the Raynes Park step-free access. That will be something that we are all very supportive of. We're now going to be moving on. You're very welcome to stay.
If I may, I've got to go to another event at 8:15, but if you may, I'm going to stay and listen.
Absolutely. So we have got another item here now, which is this is the deja vu bit, isn't it? The flooding update.
Yes.
And such. Now Tony is going to give us an update on that because unfortunately Councillor on slide couldn't make it today, but he did give us a little bit of an update himself.
Yes. It's It's a very long email. You're sitting comfortably. I think the better idea is if I just give you the edited highlights, because I believe, Chris, you can send this around, because there are a number of connections and people you can contact if you're flooding and all the other procedural points, which will be in the minutes rather than me reading them out. Progress has been made in some areas. I'll just read you out. In Coombe Lane and the Amity to Lambton Grove section, highway drainage was completed and repairs to gully connections were made. And Thames Water undertook jetting and cleansing of their surface water sewers in that part of the town centre under the council's traffic management. Merton are awaiting the outcome of 3 surface water management bids to Thames Water. One of the bids includes a new Suds rain garden feature outside the Shell garage on Walpole Road, which, having been around that corner, where they're going to put a rain garden, I've got no idea whatsoever. I said a plan would make things much clearer, but that hasn't been forthcoming. There are many places, like south, next to the railway station, where we were said if we weren't going to get Crossrail 2 and we go for our marketplace, we could actually put a sunken garden in there as well and combine urban improvements as well as flood attenuation at the same time, and maybe combine budgets and maybe make it all happen. But we'll wait to see. But obviously the bids are in at Thames Water and we don't have a decision on that yet. There's a flood risk feasibility study in Raynes Park detailing a hydraulic model for the wider area. It'll probably come to the conclusion that it floods, so that you don't have to wait too long for that result, really. But from the model, they're going to produce a list of options which provide the best benefits of flood risk reduction, etc. Because we have had flooding, I think, 3 times in 5 years now. So we usually appear on the news under the railway bridge. That's the most popular bit as well, isn't it? They're going to be undertaking a survey seeking feedback from residents and businesses to ensure all reports of flooding are captured. And it says there remains an issue with residents and businesses not reporting flooding from surface water sewers and foul sewers. So there still seems to be, there was confusion on that before, because you can only apparently get compensation from your insurance company if you tell Thames Water, but the Thames Water site said report it to the local authority. So the left and the right hand weren't exactly coordinating on that anyway. So there are numbers for reporting flooding, and you can report block gullies, etc., etc. And if you are at risk of flooding, you should visit the National Flood Forum. I think that's not literally, you don't have to go there, but anyway. So there's a whole page of details and people to connect with and all the rest of it. So if you get the copies of the minutes, you'll be able to find that as well. So things are moving slowly perhaps as well, because we did meet with Thames Water at the Bellmouth in January when they had a roadshow, and we said we'd be very willing to discuss imaginative options of flood attenuation with them as well, because there are many places you see in Europe which have gardens along the side of pavements and the water goes into the ground there before it actually gets into the main sewers, or maybe even stepped gardens on the way down some of the roads, because we need to trap the water before it arrives at the lowest point. So trying to actually fix it once it's arrived is probably one of the worst ways of dealing with it. So we did say we'd like to have a dialogue about these and have imaginative, positive urban solutions, but we haven't heard a thing, to be honest. But we are talking to Thomas Sly, and he's trying to talk to Thames Water, so maybe all the parties will get connected sooner or later, and flooding may be a thing of the past, who knows. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to ask you, Tony, to help me out with the next item as well, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
It's the business matters of repurposing the High Street. We'll be talking about the website for SMEs to sell themselves, traffic completion, and help with parking for businesses that have not been discussed in the review. And I think we'll just have a quick mention of the app that's now available to council.
Yes, if you're app people, you will find that there is a new app been produced by Merton, which you can download and helps connectivity as well. I haven't done it myself yet. I know it exists, but it's one of the new initiatives to try to actually stir life into high streets and let people know what is happening as well. There was a report on the high streets which was slightly disappointing because there was no brilliant fresh ideas and there was no money either as well. So we didn't get anything solving parking problems by making it easier for business to park sometimes and changing parking regimes or anything like that. So as we know, all high streets are under a lot of pressure, and Raynes Park probably got more pressure than others when you've got 40% of retail is now going online. And then you have a high street where you've got flooding as well. And then you have the council was going to actually put up car parking charges to make it even less likely anybody would come. It was a bit of a whammy, really. So we hope to see something which is a bit more imaginative in restoring life to the high streets as well. The traffic and pollution, you've seen those little parklets that have actually arrived as well, which there's a survey that was, I think, concluded in January on those, but I think it's been suggested if you're going to sit outside that close to the road, there ought to be some assessment of the air quality before you ended up having an unexpected surface on your cappuccino, really, as well. And then, I say, the parking for businesses, it's a regular problem overall, and there's a real balance here between businesses and residents, that nobody wants people going up to town, parking in front of their houses all day, but we need some perhaps to look at occasionally more imaginative ways where people can actually use some spaces without having to be sent away, and it would help business as well. Because, to be honest, businesses don't have a voice much in Raynes Park, because businesses don't elect councillors for a start. So councillors who are listening to the complaints of or views of residents don't necessarily pick on the business issues as well. So we still need to try a way of a forum of harnessing the business claims, because we all want a viable business centre as well, and we need to actually make sure that shopping is a pleasant experience and the vitality of the shops is maintained. But in some cases, it's unrealistic to expect someone to go for a week shopping and only use a bicycle to go to Waitrose. You know, we need to find ways in which we can actually make use of car parking for better effect as well. So I think that summarises the kind of current debate, as it were. No particular conclusions, but we need to keep looking at the issues, really.
Do we have any questions on that area at all? Okay. We're going to be going to Elizabeth Lane now, who's going to be talking about the clearing of the railway embankment. And Elizabeth, are you happy to come to the front?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to let you know, Elizabeth, there has been a resident who's got in touch with us about the overgrowth of plants and trees on the south side of the railway embankment, which is spilling onto the carriageway. And I'm sure you're well aware of those issues. I know the Raynes Park Association are aware of it. We were thinking it was probably a network.
Yes,
I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah,
Shall I do that?
Chris,
Every so often I contact Network Rail about the overgrowth there, as well as the rubbish that's thrown over. And they used to come along and do it, but less and less now. They just send some silly email in reply. It's worth phoning them and trying, yes, but they're not as cooperative as they were on those sorts of issues.
No. Is Nicola here tonight?
No, she isn't.
Oh,
But what
okay.
we could do is put the contact details of Network Rail for residents to know who to call.
Yes, I mean, I think if it's the place I was thinking of, it's either in the highway for the Highway Authority or coming from the railway for the Railway Authority. It doesn't fall under the remit of what
No,
Elizabeth
it is the railway, and the council, if they, we could go to the council and get the council to push the railway to do it. But obviously, first of all, somebody needs to phone Network Rail, and if you Google, you'll get their phone number, and they do have a system of receiving calls from the public over things like this. They do respond, but they're slower than they were. But yes, I mean, if it's causing an obstruction, they are obliged to do something. They probably will come out to that. So it's worth phoning them.
It's worth pointing out the fact that it is causing an obstruction
Yes.
when you make that contact as well. It's not just enough saying it's a bit overgrown. To actually say that it's causing an obstruction could even be dangerous for the residents.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, I'm Elizabeth Lane, and a while ago, Chris, I think the Apostles meeting with the Raynes Park Forum, you mentioned about your long campaign with Network Rail to try and get us access onto the south side of the embankment, the bit that overlooks Boots, because it looks a mess. And we managed to, there was an initial clearance about, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, And then since then, the brambles have got bigger and it's just reverting back to the mess it was beforehand. Plus, it encourages everybody to throw over their pizza boxes, beer cans, you name it. So I was sort of getting really grumpy about it, and I thought, I pay my taxes, I'm a law-abiding citizen, why do I live in this dump? You know? And then I sort of collared Chris and thought, and I said, look, I'll volunteer for this. Anyway, he remembered, so that's why I'm here. We have had a lot of thought about this, and the approach seems to be to set up a Friends of Raynes Park Railway Embankment to get a group of volunteers together. Chris has been liaising directly with Network Rail. We have their permission now to actually have access to the site on that side, and they seem to be agreeable to us putting in a group of volunteers to clear the site, plant it up, and take on board the ongoing maintenance of the site. Because if that looks better, the whole of Raynes Park looks a lot better, because the station is the focal point. And everybody uses it, so many people walk past it, and I don't know, I just feel really grumpy when it looks a mess. So where are we? We have sent out the messages through all the local residents associations asking for people to volunteer. We're looking probably for a group of 6 to 8 initially, and then once we can get hold of Network Rail to run, there will be health and safety training, and there will be some sort of guidelines set out, and we'll have to make sure that the people who are on the site, that they do have to be fairly agile, because it is quite a steep slope, and we do want Network Rail to finish clearing the site and securing the tiers, the wooden struts that are there, and the posts, because it's, I wouldn't say 100% secure at the moment. And then we can get volunteers on board, and we can set up the plans and really get together a community project and look at clearing the site, planting it up, and sort of, you know, building it for the future. So that's where we are. I don't think we've got a date yet from Network Rail, and we have got the issue of insurance, which has got to be sorted out before people can get onto that site. And I'm hoping that Network Rail will pick up the insurance issue. And I've been in contact with Anne Peacock, who runs Cannizaro Park. They've got a brilliant volunteer group there, which she set up 9 years ago with 3 people. She's now got about 25 volunteers, and it's going from strength to strength. So it's certainly doable, and I think you know, we can achieve a lot. And once we get Network Rail to sort of say, right, here you are, off you go, then I think it will sort of move forward fairly quickly. So that is the plan, and you know, volunteer or spread the word. I've got at the moment about 8 sturdy volunteers. I've got a lot of people adding support, and we even received a financial contribution. So it's definitely something which rings, you know, loud and clear in people's minds and hearts for the community. And I just hope we can sort of do something good with it. Any questions? Any volunteers?
Thank you so much.
I think you might need a bit of help with the insurance issue. We've been through this loop before, so perhaps you can contact me afterwards, and I'll try and help you through that. And try and put some bit of pressure on them.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Anything else, Chris? Do we need to?
No, I think you said the south, but it's the north of the railway, isn't it? The bit
Yes.
between opposite Boots.
It's opposite
That
Boots.
bit.
Yes, so it runs from the mobile phone shop to the actual arch where the traffic goes under. We probably won't get straight up to that bridge point, because it's very steep and short, and I think to begin with it would just be starting off at ground level and gradually working up. And I think we will be trying to do some fundraising later on, but I think that's possible. I really do. So, yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We need hundreds of you, don't we?
Yeah.
As you were speaking, I was like, yeah, she's brilliant. So
Well, no,
thank
because-
you for making
No.
sure this happened as well.
Yeah.
It's great, Elizabeth, volunteering and what she's done already.
And I'm meeting Peacock on Tuesday up at Cannizaro, and she's going to give me the inside track, 9 years experience.
We have a question, I thought,
Yes.
is it someone yet?
I know you mentioned the steepness, and I dare say you've already thought of it, but we've looked at this before, and it is very steep, and you can imagine people be sliding down. Have you ever thought of creating some sort of Levada system like they have in Madeira, where you sort of set like about 6 foot, and then you do planks right the way
Yes.
along, so people can step onto it, and then gradually work their way up to the top safely?
I think we're going to start at the lower level, but definitely that sort of structural landscaping, which I think would be great, I think would require money. And we need a professional contractor in, and probably concrete, etc. Initially I would like Network Rail to actually secure the planks that are there, which do the initial bit of terracing. And I think to begin with, we'll probably concentrate on the lower ground. And if, once we get through that part, then I would love to look at proper terracing. But then that gets quite fanciful. But it's doable.
Good.
I think it's useful for councillors to know as well if they can help with the sending out the message about
Yeah.
annual groups. So we do need exactly. You want 6, but we could have more, couldn't we?
Yeah, because people go on holiday,
Yeah.
they get bored,
Yeah.
they'll sort of,
Absolutely. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Have you got access to plants for your ideas? I just wonder in the green Merton Garden Streets group may be able to help you.
Yeah, I've got an initial plan which I've roughed out and what to plant, etc. And I've talked to various gardeners. But
Maybe donate plants for this thing.
yeah, it's sort of got to be quite a sort of cohesive gardening scheme because there's going to be no irrigation there and it's shady, and I wouldn't bet the soil's in great condition. But certainly Merton's garden scheme, I think, should be one of our key sort of stakeholders.
Maybe
that we-
get particular plants if you need them. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Good
worth
idea.
keeping
Well,
in mind.
Part of my strategy is to befriend Anne Peacock at Cannizaro,
Okay.
because she'll have a lot of plants that, when they thin things out, I think there'll be a lot of cuttings coming our way, hopefully.
Thank you. I wish
Okay.
you lots of luck, and
Oh, yeah.
I hope we can get an update next time.
Which can people contact if they want to volunteer?
Yeah, it's on the Apostles website.
Okay.
Is it, or, no, it was in the Apostles newsletter, it was in a Raynes Park. Yeah. But I don't mind my details.
Yeah, if you give Chris your
Maybe an
details,
email.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
do that.
yeah, I'll put it in.
Yeah. Okay,
Great.
thanks.
Thank you so much. We now have the double act of Crooks and Tony to talk about Kiss and Ride, land transfer, parklet and tree strategy. But I may bring in Councillor Willis at the land transfers section, and I may bring in Councillor Gould for the tree strategy section. Okay.
I mean, in a sense, the kiss and ride, Stephen Hammond's dealt with, which is great. And Matthew's going to say something about the land transfer and the parklet on this side of the skew arch. It's worked really brilliantly, and there was one day there was a couple of families sitting there having a picnic, and often when I'm passing, and probably others too, that there are people there sort of enjoying it. So, and it's all about us gradually getting hold of that area, increasing it to make it single carriageway, to make it a useful public space. It's taking time, but the parklet is again demonstrating how right that area is for that purpose.
Yes, so just that, dealing with Network Rail with the mural project, I know it can be notoriously slow, so we did a bit of chasing on the corners of land. And we were able to confirm that the legal permitted path agreement between Merton Council and Network Rail has finally been signed, so it is now able to be used for a footpath. And the checks on the utility cables have occurred, and basically Merton Council had their team ready to start, but Network Rail hadn't signed the documents. So I got in contact with the public affairs manager this week, and they've confirmed they'll do that within the month for us. So we're getting close.
Yes. Well, it's only taken 12 years to reach that point.
Another discussion about land.
Yeah. Just what happens when you get a new administration coming.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Where these pieces of land are.
Well, there were two corners. It was part of the enhancement plan where there were real pinch points. There was one at the back side of the station where you were crossing the road on the bend, and you had obstacles there anyway, signs that said dual carriageway ahead. Nobody walking across the road cared anyway. And everybody trying to cross the road was bunching up on that corner as the rail fence, followed the line of the road and squeezed people in. So we wanted to make that a more pedestrian-friendly corner. And then there was on the other side, coming in from the east side, from down the Walpole Road, there was a corner we wanted to expand there because there's the capacity to actually put tree planting in there, like a gateway from the east, because the pavement is much wider than needed for pedestrians. But it comes back to tree planting strategy and finishing off the enhancement plan. We've now got the space, and we're taking away some of the obstacle areas to actually make a better entrance coming down from Wimbledon into Raynes Park as well. It's one of those things we found you've got to do many things to get one solution. As we said about the parklets, we've now got a brilliant mural there that Matthew was leading on as well. We had little green boxes we made because we had waste artificial grass from Wimbledon a few years ago, which we put round pallets as well. We had to get rid of some of the unused cycle parking. We had to get rid of a hoarding as well. Nothing is actually very simple. It needs to have everybody working together and attacking a number of targets before we get the one target we're looking for. Thank you.
And tree strategy, we have had a consultation which has come to an end. Jennifer Gould, Councillor Gould, do you mind just giving us a bit of an update on that?
So I spoke to John Bosley at the council, who's head of parks and the lead on the tree strategy, which the consultation came out in January 2022, only for a short period till the end of February, and so I hope lots of people managed to feed into that. The draft of that is now going to be in the autumn of this year, and that will then go back out, and hopefully everyone will feed into that one, because that's, we can have as much input as we can. It's very important that people do feed in. It's actually a tree management strategy for council-owned trees only. So it's the ones on the streets, not in the parks, people's gardens so yes, it's very important that so when that does come back, I'll let Tony know, and then everyone can hopefully feed in. So
the target of 4,000 trees to be planted.
Of Merton Council, yes. Unfortunately, I don't have figures to see. They haven't obviously planted that many trees.
No, we haven't got.
But request for tree planting, you go on Merton's website and you can request trees on the street to be planted. So please do that too. And if you have a place, if you see a tree that's lost in a street, please go and say, can we have that replaced? And if you'd like a tree in the street, ask the council for that as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on any of those items? Yes.
On the tree situation, I'm very pleased to hear you're going to be, or whoever's going to be planting new trees. Obviously it's very important for the environment. But what we found during the election, that many residents, and you might like to take this back to the council, are really upset about the way the street trees aren't being pruned. That is really a big issue and needs looking at. We of course will be following up any individual questions we have from residents, but you do need to be aware of that as well.
Absolutely, yes. That's we fed back in as our group, and I particularly fed in with those comments the way the trees are planted, the tree pits that are incorrectly, not big enough for the size of the tree that's put in, and the way the tarmac is right up to the trunk of trees, all of these, and also the way the canopies are pruned, all of these things we fed back in. So yes, but as I said, when the draft comes back out, you can read through it, and then hopefully everybody will then again feed back into that as well.
If I can just add to that, I mean, in my view, don't know a lot about trees, but coming down on Walk and Parkside, not Parkside, Parkway, the trees they've actually chosen for the streets many years ago are totally inappropriate because they're about 50 foot high. So either they haven't been pruned for about 10 years, or else they were totally the wrong tree in the first place. So
I think we're absolutely right to feed back into the tree strategy and mention all the things that have just been mentioned there. You know, the damage it does to pavements, etc., and roads. All of those things are crucially needed to be put into that strategy. Yes.
Can I just say we've also been struck because obviously we've had the same complaints, like on Taunton, Prince George, there's so many roads where trees are overgrown, and we've all got the same response, which I just thought I might as well say here because it will probably be the same when anyone says to us, which is that they blame government restrictions in 2021 having put a huge strain on contractors' ability to carry out pollarding in the last winter months. And they said, well, they've tried to catch up, but there's so much that's been missed. And then they've said to Councillor Wilson Black and myself, copied and pasted each time, that they only pollard in winter months to avoid impact to nesting birds and infringement of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 and breaching the European Habitats Directive 1992 for nesting birds. So obviously that's the case where it's summer now and everything's growing a lot, but they're not cutting them back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've had
but
the
that
same
means
response.
it's not necessary, because that's a good excuse for now. If you're not careful, you'll find they'll skip that and then you're back in the same situation next year.
But we've also queried that as well because if there's nesting birds or activity, and I'm just wondering, can you not, if there's extreme cases, sort of take a view and have a look at a tree, you know, rather than just having I can understand there's a blanket approach and different seasons, but when it's got as bad as it has, there must be an argument to say if you can inspect a tree and there can be, you know, trimmed partially and then the full pollarding goes ahead in winter.
I think what we're looking at here is the council not putting enough money into maintenance actually. I think it's almost zero actually. This is a big part of the tree strategy, I think, to push on having more money to actually look after the trees that we have and take care.
There's been recent loss of staff and not being replaced within the department as well.
So that we need to look at it when it comes out, because there are the right tree in the right place, the right scale, whether it's allowed to grow without having to pollard it, or if you put a very big tree in a very restricted space, you know you've got to pollard it every 24 months probably. So it depends on your choice of tree and the water demand of the tree as well, because pinnate leaves don't require as much as broad leaves, so you don't want London plains. And if they're generally going to be putting pavements and poor soil, you want a nitrogen fixing tree like an alder as well. So I mean, it comes back to looking at it carefully with the long-term views as well for how much it's going to cost to keep looking after it.
Thank you, that was really useful, everyone. Planning updates.
There isn't one, I'm afraid.
Oh, really?
No.
Gosh. Okay, fantastic. That doesn't usually happen, does it?
Well, there's been a lot of changes in that team. So people I used to be able to tap up for updates are no longer in their roles. So it's been a bit
I mean,
trickier.
we should get that. I mean, that's one of the key things for this forum. And it's not a lot to expect the planning group to produce a short report for what's happening locally in Raynes Park.
Oh, we had a great report from our MP about planning. So.
No, we actually have had a lot today on planning, and thank you. But I just want to make the point that I do expect at a local forum that there is a summary of.
This is the only forum that asked for one amongst the five. But yeah, no, I asked and didn't get.
I think I will raise this as well separately. Yeah, I think this is important. We should really should have this. Yeah, it's an incredibly important issue for the residents in this area, and I think we're going to have to make that.
I mean, it's not every person's back extension. It's it's planning applications of note, which maybe have some public impact or whatever. So yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult to sieve those out. Really.
Can I just ask Chris, in your usual planning update, if you do include West Barnes as well as Raynes Park?
I agree.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I asked for any updates for the area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So we're on to any other business. I have got one very quick item, and then I do want to do, before we end completely, I do wish that, if it's okay for the councillors who are here, just to have a quick introduction. If there's any issues that you want to bring up or talk about, please do, because I'd love to hear from you too. So the other business that we've just been told about is about a cost of living sessions that are available at Morden Library on the 9th of July at 10:30 to 1:30, at Mitcham Library on the 16th of July at 10:30 to 1:30, and on the 23rd of July at Wimbledon Library from 10:30 to 1:30, which will be put into our notes of the meeting. Residents who attend will actually be offered a £10 supermarket voucher as well. So I do think if there's anyone who you think would be interested in that, please let them know. And
They have to attend the whole session.
yes, I think there might be some for I really like it if the councillors don't mind standing up. So the councillors who haven't had a chance, do you mind just having a stand up and introduce yourself?
Yes.
Tell us about any issues that you want.
Yes, it's this Saturday. There's
introduce yourself.
Oh yes, I'm Caroline Charlson. Well, I live in Raynes Park, but I represent Ravensbury Ward. On the 2nd of July, which is this Saturday, there's a session in Morden Library, and it's for people in bands A to D who haven't claimed the £150 rebate. So if you know anyone that hasn't, make sure they turn up there, because I mean that's a lot of money, really, and we're going to try and help them fill out the form and get the £150.
Don't people get that into their bank account?
Yeah, they do, but some people don't pay by direct debit, so it's those ones that we need to capture. And there's quite a lot in Mitcham. I think in one of the wards there's like 1,600 people that haven't claimed the money. So it's really important that we, so if you know anyone and your networks as well, do let them know.
Thank you so much. Please.
No, I'm okay.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh yes, sorry, yes, I'm James Williscroft. I'm the new councillor for Lower Morden. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And do you want to go ahead?
Okay, Nick McLean. I represent Cannon Hill Ward. Since the election, all the stuff continues on. We're working on street lighting, working with Merton Bowling Club to try and get them into the maintenance program. Various other things. Obviously, Martin Way is a big thing. Great to see the Bushy Road going back up to 30 miles per hour. Something we heavily campaigned on that. So very pleased to see that happening, and there'll be consultation coming out on that. That's just between Grand Drive and Martin Way.
Thank you. Thank you. And John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is John Oliver. I'm one of the new councillors for West Barnes. So we're working on a few issues at the moment, particularly the Greenview Drive, building extra layers on the flats there. There are quite a number of issues with that which we're working on. Meadowview Road obviously is a big concern, but on the first round, not necessarily the whole wall. There are some other issues we're working on as well. So yeah, I hope that West Barnes gets fully included in this, because Raynes Park is intended to be West Barnes and Raynes Park, isn't it?
Absolutely. And is there anyone else who would like to raise any topics or issues about their area? Yes.
Yeah, I've got one.
You must introduce yourself
Sorry,
as well. You're very important.
I'm Michael Marks. I'm the Secretary of the Raynes Park and West Barnes Residents Association. And it's a small, well, appeared small when we first started, that the 124 Grand Drive applied for standard planning permission, let it go, they want a back extension and a loft. We now have 2 floors and 5 flats being built on the site. Is that going to be regarded as a major block, or are we just going to let it go through? And if so, if you're letting it go through, Westway's the next one, because I'm going to turn mine into flats.
Really concerned about the basically, if one property does it, others will follow, and there are some very serious laws that we're not getting protected by at the moment, but in the situation here right now, I know that it's got planning permission. Unfortunately, there are other buildings in very similar situations that are also getting that type of planning permission. And large properties are tending to be developed in this way. So I'm really glad that you raised this, and I think that that's another reason why we do need to have planning.
I thought Tom's
within
slide would have
this.
been here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael, what was the site again?
I think the number's 124. I think it's about 3 along from the doctor's surgery. Somebody came along, and I can't remember the person's name, and put a stop on the build because they weren't reaching regulations. They were doing everything wrong, including builders sleeping on the site, which wasn't health and safety wise, was completely wrong. But it's the fact that they initially planned, they've overbuilt the whole garden completely on a Grand Drive. From one end to the other is completely built over now. They intend access from a garage behind the house, which effectively you have to go get down another turning to go through. So it is a very large building on a residential road. 5 flats. Yeah, if they get away with it, I'm turning Westway into flats.
Have you looked at the drawings and seen if what they're building has actually got planning consent?
Well, they got planning consent for the first layer,
Right.
and they just carried on and kept building the
This
second
is
before
a pattern of
consent.
behaviour that's
So
happening
that's
with
without
people.
consent. then?
That's without consent.
So that could be enforcement to stop.
Yes.
Yeah. And they won't necessarily get retrospective.
No, they
They've
won't.
done that.
They'll probably
They've
get
built
building
up
regs
a
against
garden,
them. But
another
Enforcement
house
officers have
in
been
the
told
back.
about this.
yeah,
I know,
it's a good money maker if they can get away with it.
Can I, sorry, I don't mean to keep asking questions, but I do ask a lot of questions. I think, personally speaking, I don't know who can do something about it, but I think the whole of the planning department needs completely reforming because they're doing such terrible, terrible things. I mean, the case in point that you've just raised, Michael, we've got 2 very large houses, our road and Blenheim Road, which were flats before, but they've converted into more flats, larger number of flats, and that was approved. And one of them has got planning permission to build, well, in fact they're built now, a pair of semi-detached houses at the bottom of Blenheim Close, which created endless problems for the people that live right at the end of Blenheim Close. And they're doing terrible things right the way through the whole department. And the whole of Merton Borough is in chaos with all the different things they're letting go through. Fortunately, we managed to stop Leicester.
There is one other thing that the council do need to do is go back to putting the objections that people make or representations back online. I do remember that David Freeman, one of our members of the council, is really good for the Tesco site, insisted that because he couldn't see them online, they had to print them for him of 500 and something pages. And it is ridiculous. They should be online. GDPR, we have sent it, Mary Jane Jeans has sent examples to the council where you don't need to edit them. You put a warning on the site saying your address will be visible by other people, and it should all be visible to everybody online, and there's no excuse.
There's been a problem with an application this week exactly about the council refusing to do it.
Yeah.
Again.
I'm sure. And the 124 wouldn't have happened if the next door neighbour knew about the planning permission.
I think this is a really good reason why we need to have planning involved with our items agenda. But thank you so much for those really, really important points, Chris. And then we'll.
This is on something else. I sort of want to half apologise to you councillors and to Stephen Hammond for how few people there are here tonight. And
Yeah, we kind of outnumbered you.
normally minimum of 50 and it's been up to 90.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it is post-COVID that people, are out of coming to meetings, but I'm really disappointed and I want to thank you because it's been
on the agenda or something like that.
it's been a very good meeting tonight, and a lot of local issues have been raised, and I just wish that sort of more people would come. But we need to watch this. I think it doesn't work. But it's been always the big event, the Raynes Park Community Forum. So yeah.
There is an argument to say that COVID
rising
has
cases.
changed. Yeah.
Do you think it's got more than community
Just
forum?
noticed that it wasn't online. I mean, I have to say, I was quite surprised when I looked at the agenda and thought that it was his rather than
Mind you,
because it's been online all the way.
Come to the Malden one as
So
well,
obviously
isn't it?
people have
Yeah.
dropped off through.
Well, I think if everyone here can spread the word to say that it's back face to face, you know, you get a lovely cup of tea as well. Maybe not the £10 voucher, but you want to say
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the Bushy Road change from 20 to 30 is it's likely to happen, but actually under consultation. So between the 14th of July and the 5th of August, it will be under statutory consultation before it's officially confirmed to be going back up to 30 miles an hour.
Is there going to be consultation? Because this is the first time I've heard about it, was actually this week.
So we only found out about it today,
Yeah,
like
okay.
officially. But 14th of July to 5th of August, so do put in your thoughts.
Okay.
It's just that the cabinet member has said they want it to be 30 again, so we will wait to see if there are objections, otherwise it would happen.
But shouldn't they consult people living in the area? Because I hear that traffic at night.
So that's what the consultation is for. So from the 14th of July to the 5th of August, you'll have the option to do that, and we will publicise those links.
Okay, we'll put that within the minutes as well. Thank you. We may be finishing earlier at 9. So thank you very much everyone for coming today, and do let everyone know that we're back face to face, because it'll be lovely to see more of you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, that was good.
See you.
Hey?